Welcome back to another review and feedback. Guess what? We have another Zerg vs. Mech. Again, submitted by Eftoo. He is a GM, so we're kind of seeing how he handles all the different iterations and variations that you see in Mech against Zerg. And he's lost a couple, he's won a couple, but I don't want to hold this up too long because, we've been doing this for quite a few. I think we're on number 6. We might be... Ooh, what happened there? Come on, game. Press StarCraft. But I wanted to kind of continue to showcase this so that way I can refer back to any of these games. People have the ability to look at them, just watch them back to back to back, or pick out which ones they're looking at. You can see I kind of changed the naming conventions, and I should probably make it so you can actually hear me right. Making it so that we can actually see what each player is doing, get a good idea of what's going on for the gameplay. This is low GM, mid, upper masters gameplay, about 4.5 to 5.5K game. This one in particular, I know you guys missed it, I'm sorry, is a 4.8 to a 5.2, 5.1. F2 wiggles around in that area, so 5.1, 5 flat in that area. So it's like he goes up and down a little bit, but that's what happens when you play, 300 or multiple 30 plus games in a week. You got to do that to be GM. That's just the nature of the beast, right? So you have like some different things that you're looking for. Generally speaking, you're going to look for an early gas for mech play, or you're going to look for them being very defensive, kind of walling off, making it so you don't know what's going on the interior of their base with regards to your scouting and all that good stuff. So you just kind of want to look for your opponent to do that. Sometimes skipping the Reaper is a good indicator that they're climbing their tech tree very fast. It's not always indicative 100% of it, but it's definitely something that Terrans tend to do. So remember, when you're scouting, you're looking for no Reaper, you're looking for 2 gases, you're looking for a wall off. Wall off doesn't necessarily mean mech, but it does mean that you need to be aware that your opponent's going to be doing some things to make it so that they're more aggressive and not trying to hide what they're doing. As for Zerg, you pretty much play a standard build every time unless you're going to cheese really hard. You want to have your 4 lings that you usually produce hanging out to protect the workers in the main. You want to use those to try and shoo away the Reaper so that it has to fight them. If you want to be really, really fancy, what you do is you select your lings, grab with a shift key, just the 2 that you want to have stay out of the group. So you go like boop, boop. Now you only have those 2, and then you can pull the weak one back, or you just select all of them, click on the weak one, and pull it back. That is a good way to make it so that you can do some slight advantages with regards to microing. Very quick, very easy, not terrible to do. On the other side of the map, we have a 3 base opener, so this is a very economical mech play. This doesn't necessarily mean a mech. Bio does happen out of this build order in this specific setup, because you have the double Hellion open. Usually you go about 6 Hellions, 4 Hellions in that area as a Terran, and you followed up with a tech lab on your barracks and other barracks and your starport. Ooh, killing a overlord. I don't know if that's an intentional overcap or not. I just am missing on what happened over here. Talking about what you're thinking about and all that kind of stuff. Spore Crawler came down, finished a little early, or did not get canceled. So this is not a bad thing. It shoos away Banshees. It's a great way to protect yourself from your opponent as they go into higher tech. And it's just something that if you cancel it, you can get a little bit more money. So I would say it's a slight mistake because it's about a minute early, and you're going to get more than the 24 minerals that you'd have lost if you had actually canceled it. But if you are somewhere that's not a GM, I would definitely not bother canceling it. I'd probably moved it at this point, repositioned it right here. The reason being is that covers all but this mineral patch, and it covers most of the gas, and is able to give you detection for your queen all the way out so that they can protect this mineral patch or this gas. And that's why you place it literally right here. That's why you put your turret in the exact same location, and that's why you always also put a cannon or a shield battery right there. I personally prefer the cannon in that location, but I know that a lot of Protosses are looking for little advantages, and they know that they can grab the shield battery to protect it. Lings are countered by Hellions, but if you can get a surround, they can't counter the Hellions. Hellions are units that you have to be very, very careful of to keep alive. Overlord being shot. Note that he has an abundance of supply above and beyond, so that when this Overlord does inevitably die, that it's not going to be a problem. And then you can see the mech play is continued. At this point, generally speaking, if you're playing against mech, they're not going to build those extra 2 Hellions. Or sorry, if they're playing against Bio, you're not going to have any more Hellions produced. This is going to be lifted. It's going to move over. It's going to make a Tech Lab or a tank or something like that. Ooh, BC open. So this is a actually more of a BC build than a mech build, but they very, very, very close. Basically, all the gas goes into BCs, and all of the minerals go into Hellions. That's where you kind of get the build together. You then transition into Thors, or you transition, it's obviously based off of what your opponent's doing and all that kind of stuff, because that's what you have to do when you get to the higher levels. You want to go and build other unit compositions that actually make it so that you're able to do that. If you look across the map, I'm going to pause it for just a second. You can see this nice Overlord spread. A little bit past the creep on everything. This is a little bit too far, I think. This is definitely too far, but I understand that they're trying to protect themselves from drops with both these locations, but like maybe having this maybe here is a little bit better, so that way if it starts getting attacked by a Viking or what have you, you can take these 3 queens, send them on over here, and then they'll be able to get there to defend it before it dies. This one is just going to be sacrificed if there's a Viking hunting, which we know there is one, and this Overlord's going to die. There's an Overlord that died here. This one was missed. I think this is a big old miss. You should probably have killed this. If you are the barcode here, you want to make sure that you're taking out the one that gives them information that they know that an army's on the way. Again, this is low GM, so there's going to be a few mistakes that I can identify. This is just a simple one. This is almost always here. You check for it and you kill it. You don't even have to keep the Viking there. You just send your Marine out, shoot it, do it. If you do start getting attacked, you drop it as an Overseer because they're faster than Vikings, or the same speed. I can't remember. And it resets the health on the Overlord. You get the detection so that if they go Banshee, which the fact that they're going so heavily into a mineral-focused unit, you kind of have an idea that they're going to have a lot of gas to spend, so you know that they're going to go BC. They're hiding something like Thor. They might be hiding some Banshees with Cloak. There's a lot of other unit compositions that require a lot of gas, but basically you know that they're building a lot of mech units. Their factories are going to be busy with building those Hellions, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be pure Hellion. You just kind of say, I see a lot of minerals spent, no gas. Sorry, I'm going to hit play again. But basically you're looking for opportunities to grab value as the Terran. You can see the Hellions jumped in right here. You can see that the Viking is hunting around. You can see the Overlords got pulled back because the Vikings clearing them up. Again, having an Overlord a little bit past creep is pretty much where you always want to be. The reason being is that your queens can run over and help. You can see as the queens come over here and help this Overlord. These rocks, unfortunately, were in a position to make it so that this Viking was able to get out, not die in the process of taking care of all this stuff. Lots of Hellions at this point. You need to be moving up to Roach Tech probably, unless you can get a really good surround where you get at least 4 of these, which he did get 3, 4, 5. 6, maybe 7, and he's just kind of, if you notice, you saw Eftoo pulling about half of them back. He just probably grabbed a nice little swath. Hellions do a fantastic job until they're in melee, and they literally just, you gotta run away with them. I like the decision to go after the workers, especially a fresh meal. Fresh meals are like 300 gold a piece, or 300 gold. 300 minerals a piece. It's like 250-ish or something like that. So it's just like one of those things where if you have the opportunity to kill them, it depends on how aggressive you want to be and all that kind of stuff, but being able to, there's the BC. You want to be able to see that and be aware of it. Notice that F2 pulls his workers back over to the Spore Crawler. The BC flying out queens. I think it's 4 queens plus a Spore Crawler to be able to kill the BC. It's 6 queens to kill without losing a queen with a little tiny bit of micro. The BC obviously is in the corner, gets only 3 kills. It's a very, 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 very low number. But that Yamato is very scary because it will kill any queen, even if it's at full health. So basically you want to be just attentive to the fact that that BC, if it just sits there, they're in the process of researching, if they are in the process of researching Yamato, the weapon refit, which is what it's called, then they'll kill one of these, and then they'll take this BC and they'll teleport it home. be able to repair it for free and not worry about it. And they're going to probably combine it with a run by, such as this. So what you're going to see is possibly this BC moving, possibly not. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Eftoo has done the equivalency of a marine split with his workers, making it so that Hellions can only kill one at a time, basically negating the ability to do that entirely. BC teleported in. Queen in a Spore Crawler. The BC will win that, but it will be very bruised. The other queen, ooh, look at that. He runs this queen closer, has infusion set, so that that BC doesn't kill that queen. It's very, like, that's really, really good value. The only downside is, of course, that you have a BC that's kind of gonna... you didn't lose the queen, but there's no real downside other than the micro. You need to do it. This base is going down, so the Zerg is trying to expand very, very fast. BCs are slow to do that, having enough lings to be able to deal with the Hellion run-bys. You can see that they're slowly coming down, only trickling in 1 or 2 at a time. The production is only 1 or 2 Hellions. I think that's just to say, hey, let's distract you. The Corruptor is killing off the 1 BC that teleported out, or sorry, the one that teleported in, which is why you don't teleport in. You fly it across, and then you do your best to teleport it out before it dies. If you watch... Tasteless, no. Man, I can't think for that. I can see his face. He's a Terran player. He's a streamer. He also does casting, a lot of casting in big tournaments, and what he does is a lot of BC play. You'll almost exclusively see him walk his BCs across the map and then teleport them home until he has a critical mass of like 6+. I think it might be 8 is where he kind of does it, and then he'll jump the BCs in. And that, of course, means that he's going to be... those BCs last for a very, very long time. BCs, they accumulate value over time by picking off, 1, 2, 3 workers at a time, 1, 2 queens at a time, and you just slowly punish your opponent. With what's going on here, the Hellion play, obviously, keeps getting caught, which, yeah, Blue Flame is amazing, but you need more than 4. You need like 10 to be able to shut down any number of lings or something like that. It might be 12. Point being is you need more Hellions. You know your opponent's going primarily lings, at least initially. You got to be attentive to that. As for the Zerg, you basically want to continue to grow. You want to be very on top of covering the map with yourself. You can see that he's got multiple bases. He's got his worker count close to 80. He's spreading the creep very, very heavily. Make sure that he has an army that is a strong composition against, that is strong to respond. Which this is, if you aren't at that upper level of skill, may not be the right composition for you. But the Roach transition to make sure so the Hellions are shut down, knowing that there's BCs, so there's Banlings are really good against Hellions and Hellbats, by the way. Having the Corruptors to shut down the BCs, continuing to get macro up in your macro hatch, getting infestation pit, so that way you can get your hive, making sure your upgrades are rolling. So 2/2 on your ranged and armor is really good for all the Roach army transition, because you know that your opponent's going mech. He keeps sending Hellions at you. You don't necessarily know, right? You're like 95% certain, especially since the F2 sent through his overseers and put in some changelings, and also sent some units, overlords throughout, making sure he knew what his opponent was doing. These kind of transitions and changes make it so you kind of have a good idea of what your opponent's doing, and Roaches and Ravengers do a really good job of shutting down tank, Thor play, and all that kind of stuff. So you can see that the barcode is setting up a very defensive position, basically saying, I don't want this base yet, and they're going to expand to the south. So if you can mine out this gold as much as you possibly can, because guess what? The way that Terrans function is they go, let me build this extremely strong force, slowly move it, let me take this one base, set up a huge defensive army, defensive position, okay, let me go on to the next one, let me take this base, etc. And as you can see, the beast, he scanned just to see what his opponent's doing, and Hellion going down for all those lings, but that was a lot of lings. But you know what? F2 doesn't care, because his army composition is, at this point, basically low tech enough that he wants to probably transition away from the lings. Lings are very, very good. They're great for catching Hellions. They're good for responding to things. So that's why having the creep spread all the way across the map, just knowing where everything is, yada, yada, yada. The Corruptors show up to protect for the BCs. This is a great decision. I really like what's happening here. Overseer didn't drop one of his little changelings. Gonna lose it. No. Make sure that when you can queue up spells and abilities. So what you do is you set your Overseer above the ground in like 3 places, try and drop 2 changelings, and then have it get out so you don't lose it. Not a big loss, but just something to do. It takes a couple, 3 actions, and you can do it with a shift very quickly. Mech likes to move out. You have tank army. If it's unsieged, you can do so much damage to it as soon as it starts getting sieged. If you don't have vials and enough army already in melee, time to run away. Same with the Thors. If they are not ready for you, you need to get out. You need to be on top of it. So F2 is trying to do his best to use his biles to kill BCs to make it so that this army takes a long time to get across the map. The reason being is that the longer it takes, the more damage you do. It allows for you to remax. As you can see, there's a massive swell of Zerg getting ready to kill the BCs all outright. That means there's no more air. All of the tanks have stuff all around them, Thors, enough roaches, and then this army isn't strong enough to end the game. You now have the ability to get out with your what's remaining and continue to try and remax. It's okay to lose just the space because you fought this big whole death ball of an army. This was a really cool open from the Terran. I really liked what they did. But F2 just basically said, I'm going to delay, I'm going to delay, I'm going to delay, I'm going to damage, I'm going to damage, I'm going to damage. And you can see him coming around for a surround. The tank was unsieged, being able to get this army completely shut down. You can see that the Terran still hasn't remaxed, and F2 is very close to remaxing. If you look at the larva count, there's only 5, so you have to make sure you're continuing to inject. Queen, queen, inject, inject, inject. So there's F2's making mistakes with regards to not injecting, being on top of that, because he just doesn't have the larva count to remax. Especially since the remax that he's going to be doing is going to be on roaches, which are very supply heavy, and Ravengers, which obviously he wants to be able to deal with the tanks, planetaries, any of the turrets and things of that nature, and Thors, right? You have to have the tankiness for that. So this game's going to go at least one more attack from the Terran, if not a big swell counterattack from the Zerg. You can see that there's all kinds of defense. You can't surround this planetary. You have tanks holding up this section here. Also, we're going to just watch this a little bit. Look at those hellions focusing down the drones. F2 kind of like box selecting and sending his units all over. The Terran barcode, who has turned his hellions into hellbats, did a really good job. Ended up killing, I think, that's a misclick. 7 left, so 5 or 6 workers on a gold base, making it so that they had to respond, not being able to attack, giving the Terran plenty of time to try and remax. Remember, Terran mech takes forever to rebuild. So what that means is, if we look at the structure count, there's only 8 factories. There should be like 12 or 14, just simply because they have the money, 1, and 2, they're not maxed out. F2 using his infestors very effectively, grabbing the Thors, shutting down the front line for the Terran. Looks like he didn't end up killing them, but he used it to destroy all of the tanks, because the Thors will not be targeted by its own units, which is kind of interesting. Makes sense. I get why the prioritization. Lings just flowing around. They're really good against Thor. Lings are very cheap gas-wise, so you're able to make it so that the Terran is just in a really bad spot. You can see that he's hopscotching into his next base. You can see that the Zerg is trying to extend creep to delay. I'm surprised he doesn't have a burrowed Ling here. I know he has one over here, but you can see how, I'm going to just kind of remove this entrenched position and reposition. So if you're going to attack as the Zerg, you want to try and go to a different location, or if you have enough. For example, tanks are really terrible against Lings if you don't have anything in front of them, or you don't have supply depots or any of that kind of stuff. He got a Zergling underneath it before it was placed because the Zergling made it lift. Hilarious. F2, you dirty, dirty boy. But essentially, the Zerglings are going to beat these tanks unless he's got a critical mass, and there's just too many of the Lings around, and he's able to end the game. No GG, none of that kind of stuff. So, point being is when you are playing against mech, you need to be very on top of. That's really weird that did that. Sorry. You have to be really on top of what army composition your opponent's doing. So you want to make sure you have an overseer, an overlord with speed, changelings, etc. Go and kind of experience what your opponent's doing, and that way you're able to prepare yourself appropriately for whatever stuff your opponent's building. And then you also have the correct unit composition. Lings are not good against hellions unless it's an overwhelming number of Lings. period. That's just what it is. Roaches are tanky. They can handle a huge number of hellions, so you have to be kind of aware what kind of balance your opponent's going. I think the barcode sent out too many low number hellion raids, only attacked at one vector at a time. So, oh, I'm doing multi-prong stuff. Well, your BC wasn't hitting at the same time your hellions were hitting. At the same time, your rest of your army was moving forward to take another base slash take out a base that's a different location that you're running those things to. You can fly the BC and hellions over the same location and then have your entire Thor mech army going to that corner base and then pushing up. So basically, let me pull you way over here with the hellions. Let me hit way down here on the map with my other unit composition to make it so that you're just in trouble. Also, not clearing the Overlord very early on with that Viking. Like, that should have been the second or third Overlord you took out as a Terran. Obviously, I'm a Terran player primarily, so I'm talking about their strategy. We did just see the Zerg play, where basically it was like, let me run these Lings past the Hellions and then have them clump back up and an attack move around them. Also pulling, once you knew that the army was going to win, pulling a part of the army to go do other things to just keep the army active is very important, to make it so that you're able to have slight advantages here and there, more paths open, making sure that you're in position for a different run by in a different location, because if they had split the Hellions into two groups instead of doing the one ball, then you have to be able to ready for that other group, because maybe they sent in one to pull you away, sent in another one a little bit later to go to where your army is not. Those kind of things are very challenging to handle for anybody that's below the top about 50 players. And even the top 50 players, it's something that they have to be like cognizant of and capable of. And Eftoo was saying, hey, I'm ready for this. I want to be aware of it. I know that this player has been sending a lot of low number of Hellions. Maybe they've split it into multiple groups. Other things that were really good, having just a handful of Corruptors, and when I say handful, it was a little bit more, it was like 8 Corruptors, but that's enough to handle 1 or 2 BCs. Once you start seeing bigger numbers of BCs, and you don't see the Thors, you don't see the tank count, you just get Hellions and BCs, that's when you up that Corruptor count a lot, and you also invest more in your investors, because you can also grab the BCs, micro them, manage them so they can't jump away, all that kind of stuff. That being said, both players are very good. I didn't see any major mistakes, just little minor ones, but that's when you get up to GM, that's generally what you're going to start seeing. So, again, I really enjoyed the game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.